Hello, my Facebook friends. Catherine here on a Saturday afternoon. I just got back from a walk. As usual, you're getting me with my awesome hair. It's about 2:30 on a Saturday in Memorial Day weekend, so my suspicion is that many of you are with friends and family today. I'm actually at a friend's house with the murder dog Orly. We're having a good time. And I just wanted to share something today about, for me, what it means to be trauma-informed in my teaching. This will be specific to yoga, though it works in any number of contexts. And it's actually derived from a core concept of teaching, which has to do with how you hold people. And when I say how you hold people, I'm not talking about your student is in downward dog and you're going to give them an assist. So how do you put your hands on their hips to move them back so that they're not compressing their joints? I'm talking about how you hold people in your heart and in your mind. And teacher itself is an archetype, like prince or king or servant. And within the teaching archetype, there are several attitudes you can take. So on one extreme, there's the attitude that says, I know everything, I have all that you need, and I, as the teacher, am going to tear you down to nothing and then rebuild you in my image or the image of some other idealized state. I think that's really common in like military contexts where you go in, from what I know, in basic training, you know, like you lose your name, your head gets shaved, you're called a grub, all of your sense of self. Let's tear that away so that we can build you into a soldier. And from a class experience or like working with people, were I to hold people who I'm teaching in that light where I have all the answers and it's my job to impart and to recreate them, I see that as holding people unable. As saying that somehow intrinsically, just because you're in front of me, you are lacking something and it's my job to give it to you. This is not how I think when I teach. Hi, Tony. I actually think in quite the opposite way. So when I'm teaching, I take the attitude of I hold people able. And sometimes that means that if I'm working with a person who has a visible or invisible disability, that, for example, if I used to have a student who is a partial amputee, she doesn't have a hand, and we're in a vinyasa yoga context. So by holding her able, and not thinking that I have all of the answers all of the time, my approach to working with her is, let's see what works. Let's see what you can do. In a trauma-informed context, or approaching teaching yoga from a trauma-informed perspective, holding a person able is one way to reinforce and demonstrate the concept of sovereignty and autonomy for your students. And at its heart, it says it's not about me as the teacher, it's about the person who I'm serving, who I'm responsible for. And I'm not talking about like, you know, any kind of Pollyanna, like, oh, I just see everybody's beautiful and we're all perfect, we're all expressing in whatever way because la-di-da, you know, life is beautiful. I'm actually talking about holding people able, like believing there is something that they can do, believing in people just because of the fact that they exist. And when you hold a person able, you're going to solve problems with them differently than if you hold them unable. So if a person has had trauma, which, by the way, pretty much everybody who comes into your class will have had some trauma at some point in their life. And there's no way of knowing exactly where they are in it. One of the things you might hear from people are the words, I can't. So they'll mumble it to themselves, I can't do that, I can't do that, I can't do that, I can't do that. I'm not suggesting at all that if a person is saying I can't, that means that you should assume that they've had trauma. I'm just saying that's one way that a person who has had trauma might verbalize in a class, I can't. If you have all the answers and you approach that person and say, well, no, do it this way, of course you can, just do it. And you order them, you're removing autonomy and sovereignty. Whereas in that moment of I can't do it, if you ask a very simple question, well, what do you think you can do? What's possible today? Now, you're not the expert of them, they're the expert, because by the way, you're not the expert of anybody, and they're in an empowered place in the dialogue exchange with you to figure out what works for them. So you just do it that way. And yeah, so that's a core teaching value of mine, having to do with holding people able. And apparently that also makes me trauma informed because I think that way. So if you're thinking about ways to be trauma informed in your teaching, or ways to cultivate a greater sense of that from you towards the people in your care, take a step back and check in and see how you hold people. And I don't know, let me know how it goes. I mean, there's a million ways to do everything the right way, and there's no one way that works all the time in every context. This is just something I thought I'd share today. So there you have it. I hope everyone is having an awesome afternoon, and I will see you later. Bye.